cut, and we couldn't actually finish some of the topic. We started and we were able to actually get into the introduction part of it. Uh, I will continue from the place that we got, you know, cut last time. But then, like last time, I was mentioning, um, I usually like looking at faces and you know talking and teaching. So I'll be happy if you can put your videos on. It's not that I want to target anyone or ask questions. Just it's a human nature to actually look at people and talk. Then I will understand if are you getting it or not. Okay, it's basically for feedback. Otherwise, I will just go in a flow and then you may not even get a chance to actually ask questions. Anyway, I want to start with where we we got stopped today, uh, and I hope you will understand uh, till that time. I will just very quickly do a refresher, and then we talked about what is lifespan, the meaning of lifespan. Just remember womb to tomb. Okay, lifespan talks about life, which starts not after birth. It starts before birth, from the conception itself. So it's basically from womb till you die. That's tomb. So womb to tomb. Okay, is called as actually lifespan. And then we looked at development. What do you mean by development? We are looking at development as progression, as development towards maturity, growth. So patterns of growth and change we are trying to understand. Then we looked at the subject of lifespan development. What do you mean by lifespan development? And then we looked at, how we will be understanding stage by stage what happens in human life and what are some of the struggles and difficulties and how, we grow in those through those struggles and difficulties and move to the next stages. Okay, we also looked at lifespan developmental psychology, which is a subfield of psychology. Okay, it's completely dedicated, specialized field which studies lifespan and the developmental stages, and what is the growth that every individual has during those stages. It can be in terms of behavior, cognition, and emotion. And we looked at why we study lifespan. Okay, it helps us to understand our life, how we have grown, okay, what has happened to the different stages in our life, because those stages define who you are today. Okay, so when you study this course, you will get an understanding about your own life, and also we can notice the pattern in other people, so we can understand why they are behaving the way they are behaving, why they are thinking the way they are thinking, why their emotions is like that when they are expressing in such a way. So it helps us to unravel the mysteries of life. Okay, and that's why we actually study uh, you know uh, developmental psychology. So uh, in short, developmental psychology refers to the development throughout the lifespan. Okay, so we are studying different stages of life and the development in those stages, which allows us to move from one stage to the other. Okay, what shapes the way we change over time? That means we are also constantly changing. Okay, 5 years from now, if you would have thought, if you would have looked at your life, and now this lot of changes has happened. Okay, and if you look at 5 years into future, we again can believe a lot of changes can happen, and so that changes is natural. Okay, change is not unnatural. Changes needs to be there. Okay, that's why usually I say that even our understanding of God changes, even the way we look at spirituality also changes, even the way we connect with God also changes. Okay, and that's the change that people actually encounter. Even relationship changes also comes in marriage. there is changes. You cannot always have the same relationship like the start of the marriage. There is evolvement in the relationship. So everywhere there is change, and naturally there is change in our life also. Okay. Focus on the psychological changes. So basically there are a lot of different changes, but we focus on the psychological development. Okay. And there are different areas of psychology when you look at lifespan perspective. There is a biological development, there is social development, there is cognitive and perceptual development, and then there is personality development. Biological means bodily, okay, which is physical. Social means your connect to the society, your social support system. That is what is social development. Cognitive and perceptual is the way you think, the way you understand, the way you integrate, organize, or the way you understand the things around you. Okay, so that is cognitive and perceptual development. And then finally comes personality, who you are inside, your attitudes, your value system, your the way you gather energy. Are you extrovert, introvert? Are you logical, emotional? All that is something which is connected to your personality development. Your intuition, your judgment, your feelings, all that also comes under personality development. Okay. Now, uh, let's understand. I think this is where I think we stopped last time. Different developmental periods of lifespan. Now, this is what I will be doing one by one. I will be going into each stages to understand, different life stages. Now, different authors, different theorists have divided life into different stages. Okay, but we are trying to basically understand it from the common stages. So, some of the stages that we will get into is prenatal stage. Prenatal is something which before birth, from conception, the 9 months of growth. Okay, then comes infancy, which is birth to 18 to 24 months of age. Then toddlerhood, 12 to 15 months, and then 2 to 3 years. Then early childhood, middle childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, middle adulthood, older adulthood. So that's one way of dividing the lifespan. Okay. There is another way which is very, sort of very commonly that people follow, is Elizabeth Hurlock's division of lifespan. Okay, so she divides lifespan again into different compartments. One is prenatal stage. Okay, that means conception to birth. Then comes infancy stage, that means birth to the end of the second week. Then comes babyhood. Okay, where second week to second year. Then comes early childhood. Then comes late childhood. Then comes pre-adolescent, adolescent. Then comes early adulthood, middle adulthood, and then old age. Okay, so you can find lot of different varieties of these stages also. Basically, it is trying to tell that there are stages, and sometimes some stages are divided into three parts. Okay, like for example, adulthood. So there is early adulthood, middle adulthood, and late adulthood. So it can also be divided into different stages also. Even when we talk about old age, there is early old age, middle, and then late old age also. Okay, so there are different types of bifurcation of different stages. Okay, now one of the main thing that we will be looking at today is to understand human development from different theoretical perspective. Okay, now this is where many people start thinking, oh, our theory started, so it is boring. But actually, it becomes interesting when when we look at some things from different lens. Okay, from different perspective. We will get an understanding of why people are how they are right now. Okay, so there are different framework that people use to understand human behavior. Now all these theories are trying to help us understand, explain, and make prediction. So three things are happening. It is helping us to understand human behavior, explain human behavior, and predict human behavior. Now you will say how I can predict human behavior. Okay. Now simple example is, let's say, for example, let's say a 5-year old is holding a knife, and playing with a knife. What we can predict? What is the prediction that we can have? What do you think? Can we predict something if a 5-year old is holding a knife?
Maybe he will get hurt, sir,
Okay.
by
That's a
playing with
co-
the
that's
knife.
a that's a common prediction, right? It is not trying to tell that, oh, you are not good for anything, or you will not develop, you will never be able to hold a knife ever in your life. No. But we can actually predict a 5-year old doesn't have the capacity and maturity to handle a sharp instrument or object. So chances of hurting is very, very high. So that's why as an adult we snatch, when a child is playing with a sharp object, because we know we don't want that child to get hurt. So that is what is called as prediction. Okay. Like for example, a 18-year-old, if he takes a bike and drives on the road, maybe 100 or 120 kilometer per hour, we can predict something, right? We can actually say that, okay, if they go like this, they will soon end up in a box. Okay. Now in Bangalore, there is, they called it, especially youngsters, they called something called wheeling. Do you know what is wheeling? Any idea?
Lifting the front wheel of bike.
Yeah, lifting the front wheel of bike, going like this, wheeling. And so many accidents, death has taken place, because of that. And a person, a youngster who is doing wheeling, if they are not professional in a protective environment, we can predict something. We can say that that behavior is dangerous and it can lead to death. Now, that is what is predicting behavior means. When you see a pattern and when you see that, okay, when child reaches a certain age, child will undergo puberty. Okay. Now that is not something like I'm talking, an alien language. That's part of human behavior. So that puberty, that stage of life is expected, it is predicted. Okay. So that is what, is the benefit of theories. Theories, it's a structure, it's organized, it's coherent set of ideas which helps us to understand, it helps us to explain the behavior, and it makes predictions also. Okay, that's why we need behavior. That's why we need theories, and theories gives us understanding. Okay, theories change over time also. Okay, and many time it can contradict to each other. So why? Because for example, like 2020 and 2022, we all went through pandemic situation. you know Now children, if you tell them about quarantine, we all understand what is quarantine. Okay, wearing mask, we all understanding, it's a common behavior now. So even the way we, those new experiences have changed the way we look at things and understand things. So theories also goes through changes according to the new development, new technology, new understanding, new, things. Lot of theories goes through changes. Okay, and that's why when we study theories, we have to understand what that original theory was and what is the present theory that is existing. Okay, many times when we look at theories, we only look at the original one which may not be existing now, and then we say, oh, that theory is wrong. But we need to understand that theories also goes through changes, and it goes through refining, polishing, and then it adapts to the, present day situation. Okay, so theories change over time and can contradict. Why? Because it is, the understanding is different, the framework or lens through which they are looking is different. Okay, for example, I don't know how many of you remember your school time. During my school time, there was something called a drawing period. Okay. So during that drawing period, our teacher used to come and he will keep an object on the table. Okay, if, let's say this bottle, he will keep the bottle on the table like this. And he will ask all of us to draw. Okay, and we all will be drawing that bottle. Okay, and then I remember once after that period was getting over, he came and he asked a student who was sitting in the extreme left, show your drawing sheet. So he showed. He said what he is drawing. Okay, so we all said he's drawing the bottle. Okay, so he said, look at this sheet very carefully. So they looked at it very carefully, and then he gave it back to the person who is sitting at the left. Then he went to the right side, and then he said, show me your drawing sheet. And he took the drawing sheet and again showed to the class. He said what he is drawing. We all said he's again drawing the same bottle. Okay, and he said again look at the sheet, and we all looked at the sheet. Then he came to the middle, and then he asked the student who is sitting in the middle to show the drawing sheet. He again took the drawing sheet, he showed and asked again, what is drawing? We all said the same thing. He is drawing the same bottle what the other two are also drawing. And he said, look at this drawing sheet. He said, what did you see? He said, and we said that all three are drawing same object, but what they are drawing is completely different. Okay, maybe because the person who is sitting left side might have seen this wording. Okay, so he is drawing this angle. The other person is drawing this angle. So the person who is sitting at the left may not see this arrangement here. The person who is sitting front can see it differently. Okay, so they are all drawing differently, but the way they are looking, the angle is different. And that's why theories, they contradict each other, because they are looking things from different lens. That doesn't mean it is wrong. Okay, so we should never pitch and tell that okay, this three theory is right and this theory is wrong. We cannot do that. Every theory is right. Okay, only thing, the angle that they are looking, they look from a certain angle. If you want to use that theory, what you have to do? You have to use the same angle from which they are looking at the theory, or they are trying to understand things. Okay, then we will get how they are seeing. So that is what is why theories change over time and why they contradict from each other. So there are major types of theories. So in theories also, it's like a bucket list, or it's like a buffet. When we go to to eat food, many times there are buffet system, right? So it will be written there: veg, non-veg, desserts, starters, right? In that there is no one item. In starter there will be 5 or 6 items. It is your choice to choose which item do you want. Okay, you go to veg counter, you see lot of items, from there you choose. Non-veg, there are many items you choose. Dessert, there are many items you choose. So it's a buffet, but it is under different categories. So all the theories you can divide into certain categories. Okay, what are those categories? First thing is biological. Okay, I will explain this as we go ahead. So just try to understand biological. Then there is something called a psychodynamic. Then there is something called as cognitive and behavioral and social cognitive. And then finally, ecological or integrative theories. Okay, so these are the 5 lenses that we can actually look at. Okay, and try to understand what is happening with what is happening with the people and the behaviors of people. Okay, now before I go into that, let me ask you this question: have you studied the theories of psychology? Anything? Have you gone through that subject, or am I audible, or I am stuck? Okay, it looks like I am I am
Nah, you are audible. You are
okay.
audible.
Okay, okay. Have you studied theories like, psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud,
No,
something?
sir. No, sir.
No, okay, not yet. Okay, okay,
No, sir.
okay, okay, okay. I think, when you go into the theories, you will get lot of details. I will not be able to go into that because, my topic is different. So I will be brushing through and helping you to understand in the most simplest way. I hope you will be able to get what I'm trying to tell. And you please ask questions so that I can, we can have a good discussion and talk about it. Okay. I'm so happy that at least some of you responded to my question. Okay. So let's look into the biological view of human development. That means when you look at human, we can understand human being from the biological growth perspective. Okay, every child is growing physically. Okay, and the physical growth continues. Okay, so basically, if you have to draw in terms of diagram, there is a growth. It reaches the peak of development, and then there is sort of depreciation, sort of somewhere that old age, slowly there is loss of growth also. But that doesn't mean people are not growing when they're old. They can still grow, but there is also loss, which also happens during the other stages. But we can understand people from the physical development perspective. Okay, now there are three things. If you are looking from a physical development or biological development, there are three things that we can keep in mind. Okay, the first thing is called as genetic studies. Now genetic studies means, uh, I don't know if you have heard this term DNA. Okay, there is a DNA pattern or a structure that we all have, that which we have got it from our parents, our grandparents, and it is continued from generation to generation. Okay, so when we are born with a DNA structure, and that DNA structure has all the elements that we see right now. That means what type of diseases we will get, what type of health we will have, whatever lifestyle. Somewhere everything is scripted in that DNA structure. Okay, so that is what is called as genetics. Okay, so it's all the biological instruction is encoded. It's like a chip that is there in us. And so when we are that's why when baby is born, and when people will come and say, oh, he's looking like grandfather, oh, he's looking like great great grandfather. Why? Because it is encrypted in the genetics of uh, of uh, of human being. Like, for example, if I give my example, from my childhood I used to have asthma. Okay, now my dad doesn't have asthma, my mother doesn't have asthma, my brother doesn't have asthma. So naturally the question comes, from where I got this. Then I understood that my grandfather, grandfather's sister was a serious asthmatic patient. So sometimes, we get some things in our life which is genetically, sort of transferred into our DNA. Okay, so from genetic perspective also there is a lot of studies that has taken place. Now let me tell you, uh, now some of you will be thinking, oh, it is all big, genetics, so nothing can be done. But now there are studies and there are research. For example, when we talk about IVF treatment, or when we talk about treatments like that, there is also scope where people can work on that genetics also. Okay, take out some genome. Okay, it's called as human genome. That is the DNA structure which makes us sort of accustomed to some of the diseases. Okay, so they can actually take out those genetic factors out. But there are also people who understand, like, for example, My grandfather, let's say, he was diabetic. My great grandfather was a diabetic. My grandfather was a diabetic. My father was a diabetic. Then there is high chance that I also will be diabetic. Okay, so sometimes when we look at genetic, we can also take precautions. Now there was I think few years back there was a news that one of a very famous actress, she went through a surgery, because she understood that in her genetics, the one of the common diseases was breast cancer. So it has been passed on from generation to generation. So when she understood that in the genetics it is there, she had to go through surgery for prevention. Okay, so many times genetics also plays a very important role, in human development. For example, how much height we will have, how much weight we will have, how much health we will have, how much we will adapt. It's all there in our DNA. Okay, and it is not the end of the story. Our DNA also goes into the future generation. So I cannot say, oh, I am like this because my genetics is like that. No, we can also work in such a way, we can put efforts in such a way that we can change the pattern of genetics also for the future generation. Why? Because again, when husband and wife they come together, they have relationship, sexual relationship, and when the baby comes out, again there is a combination, restructuring of DNA pattern, some from husband, some from wife, and that makes a unique mix that we transfer from genetics. So there is lot when we talk about genetic studies. Okay, even though I hope you don't get majority what I'm telling, but I hope you understand what I'm hinting at. Okay, what I'm actually trying to tell. Then comes developmental neuroscience. Now, even our brain is going through development. Okay, the way a child brain is will not be the way adult brain is. Okay, now let me ask you this question: do you know at what age the brain is fully developed? What do you think? What you can guess also?
25,
What? Five? Okay.
25.
25?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyone else? Anyone else? By what age or what range of age, the brain is fully developed?
Somewhere close to 20.
Okay, 20. Anyone else?
25, sir.
Okay, so we have 225, 120. Anyone else?
So maybe 35 years.
Okay, okay. If you look at the brain development, usually 21 to 23 is where, that range where our gray matter, okay, if you understand the brain development, gray matter is something which comes at last. The last, stage of development is where the gray matter of the brain is developed. And that usually, the fully growth or development of it is achieved when a person reaches 21, 22, 23. So that's the range that we can expect, okay, that a person is having the full growth of brain. Now what is this gray matter? Gray matter is also which allows us to understand what is the consequence of our decision. Okay, like if I ask you the question, if you take this decision, what is the advantage and disadvantage? What are the pros and what are the cons? You will be able to understand. Why? Because your gray matter allows you to have an analysis of what is right and wrong, discern what is right and wrong. But a person whose gray matter is not developed, they may not get what you are actually talking about. Okay, so that's why when we see some teenagers, taking some huge risky decision or behaviors, okay, and when you go like an adult and tell them, if you take this decision, this is going to happen, They cannot understand. Okay, why? Because their analytical brain has actually not developed. So they still are in the developing stage. Okay, I will talk about it when we go into the adolescent stage and when we try to understand things. So from the brain development itself, to understand the neuroscience, that itself is a different lens, different framework which we can use to understand brain function, brain behavior, and the way we think. Okay, like for example, I will stop the sharing and then maybe ask some of these things. For example, someone shared a joke. Okay, and you laughed. Okay, how you are laughing? Have you ever thought about it? Sometimes we watch, let's say, a movie or a serial, or we hear stories. We laugh, we cry, we become angry, all the different shift of emotion. How we are able to achieve? Okay, you know what is the reason we are able to get up early in the morning, and why we go to sleep every night? Now think about it. Yeah, you may say these are all behaviors. Okay, oh, someone laughed, I also laughed, but something is happening in your brain. Okay, some chemicals are released, and because of that release of chemicals, you are able to express a certain things. Okay, now for example, the when we talk about um, getting up. Okay, uh, you know uh, when we get up early in the morning, there is a huge spike of a neurochemical called as cortisol. Okay, and that cortisol hike or sort of shift or that lift, which is actually connected to what we say as stress. When we say, oh, I am stressed right now, or I'm going through a lot of stress, we are actually talking about high levels of cortisol. Now, high levels of cortisol is needed for you to get up. Okay, and that same cortisol, the height that cortisol goes up, that same way it will go down also. That's why when it comes down, we feel sleepy. Okay, so like in Hindi we say, it's all about chemical locha. All this balance and the ups and downs of some chemicals which is hitting in our brain. And that's why when we talk about some clinical condition like depression, okay, people who are diagnosed, now very important to use the word diagnosed, that means they've gone to doctor have identified that they have depression. People have depression, they have also identified that some neurochemicals are not there. Okay, and that's why they are in a low state. That means they are not able to get the heights of joy or happiness. Why? Because the chemicals itself are not triggering. That's why they give antidepressant, or mood lifters to spike their that neurochemical so that they can feel good about it. Okay, so from that neuroscience perspective also there is a lot to understand and learn, and that helps to understand human behavior. Okay, that helps to understand why people behave in a certain way. Okay, and why people are doing things in certain way. Okay, any questions till now? Okay, now there is a question here. uh, what about people who have some mental issues? Does their brain develop at the same age as everyone? Now, see, when we talk about mental issues, when we say, it may not be the right word there. Uh, it can be mental illness. Okay. For example, I talked about depression. Depression is a mental illness or a situation. Okay. For example, when we have a sickness in our body, let's say, you fell sick, like fever. Okay. Now, when a person gets fever, uh, it certainly has impact on the health of a person. But then, if there is treatment available, we can use that treatment and we can come out of the illness. Okay, same thing goes. Now there are some illnesses which can be treated. There are some illness which cannot be treated but only can be managed. Okay, physical illness also is similar, mental illness also is similar. For example, diabetic, a person who is diabetic, we are not looking at a treatment to cure diabetic, we are looking at management of it. Okay, so a lot of people, they use medicine not for the cure of it, but they are trying to manage the illness. Same way, mental illness also, there are times where there is treatment available to help them be cured of that illness, and sometimes that illness will be chronic, where they have to just manage the symptom. For example, schizophrenia, bipolar, all that, there is management of that illness. Okay, but if you are telling, does these illness has any impact on the brain development? If it is happening very in a very early stage, okay, chances of impacting the cognitive development, the way people think, it can impact. Okay, if it is happening in a very early stage of development, that means in during their childhood. Let's say a child is witnessing or going through a very traumatic event in their life. Will it impact the brain development? Yes, it will impact the brain development. Okay, there are a lot of studies shows that any child or children who have encountered or witnessed, or they have got into drugs or substances, okay, in very early age, like 10, 11, 12, like that, chances of having some sort of delay in their brain development also have taken place. Some, for example, gray matter doesn't get fully developed. Why? Because of the influence of drugs and substances in their life. Okay, so many factors, there can be many factors which can actually stop brain development. Okay, if it is happening in very early stages. Okay, for example, trauma, any sort of trauma can impact the or delay the brain development. Okay, um, it can also slow down some children. Like, for example, when we talk about some of the special needs children, their developmental stages, it is slow. So physically they will be looking maybe like 12-year-old or 13-year-old, but mentally their development will be like a 5-year-old. Okay, initially we used to use the word, oh, they are mentally retarded. We don't use that term now. Okay, we don't, no one uses the word retarded. Okay, now we use words like, okay, they are mentally disabled or mentally challenged. Okay, this is the word, appropriate word that is used. We don't call them, they are retarded. Okay, they are mentally disabled. Okay, for example, physical disability, yeah, like for example, blindness, a person who is blind, we call them, they are physically disabled. Okay, we don't call, like in Hindi, we, oh, ye to andha hai. We should not use words like that. A person is having visual disability. Okay, so same way, there are people with mental disability also, or they are mentally challenged. Like we say, physically challenged, they are mentally challenged. Okay, people those who have polio, okay, their one leg will be small, one leg will be normal, we say they are physically challenged. Okay, so same way, there are people also who are mentally challenged, so they may look bigger in terms of uh, physical growth, but their brain growth or mental growth will be delayed. Okay, so they may be having the physical growth of 15-year-old, but their mental growth will be like 8-year-old or 9-year-old. Okay, so that is called as developmental delay. Okay, so that also can be the reason why there is slow growth of brain. Okay, but will a person who has mental illness, is their brain growing like normally like us? Yes, it has a normal growth unless there are some factors which is sort of slowing down, like substances, or some sort of illness which is sort of slowing down the whole process. Okay, so that's about the brain growth and mental issues. Any other questions till now?
So,
Yeah,
I have one question.
yeah.
When you talk about substances, does it include tobacco also in that substances?
Everything. When I say substances, that means it include uh, tobacco means nicotine. Okay, nicotine. I'm talking about alcohol. I'm talking about cannabis. All substances, legal or illegal. It can also include inhalants. For example, some people inhale certain smoke. Okay, which can also create not just nicotine, but there are other smokes also, like paint and things like that. Thinner, inhalant also can create impact, or it can slow down the process of brain development.
So after they have stopped taking drugs, alcohol, after they have stopped all those tobacco, everything. So because for them to get for them for the development of their brain, how does it restart or does it have and how long does it takes for them to have that mentality capacity again?
If they have been using it for a long time, okay, a
Yeah, let's say for
temporary,
10 years they have been using that.
then naturally we can expect some sort of damage. Okay, sometimes these damage are not physically visible, but in the ways of comprehension, in the ways of problem solving. Okay, those analytical work, they may have difficulties, like for example quickly adapting or quickly solving something, that quick adjustments. Okay, all those analytical work, they may have impact, because during the neurodevelopment, now how it's actually there is a lot to share about when it comes to substance addiction. Why? Because it's my area of interest also. Okay, now what is happening is, I will put in a very simple way, okay, so that you can understand. uh, when let's say, when we have okay, the best way to, I'm trying to simplify it, so please understand what I'm trying to tell. Our brain has, it is made up a lot of neurons. Okay, neuron is the smallest unit that our brain has. And neurons, if you look at it, it's like, when you go out and you look at the skies, the billions of stars out there, it's like that. There are millions of billions of neurons in our head. So any new information, for example, if this is what I'm telling is something which is new, you are actually creating a new neuron. Okay, so a new information is a new neuron, but if you don't you know understand it, if you don't repeat it, and if you just keep it lying like that, in few days that neuron also will die, and then you will not remember, are you what that sir was telling that day, I forgot that word. So that's, so birth and decay of neuron happens constantly. Okay, so there are billions of neurons in us, and all these neurons are connected. It's called as neural pathway. Okay, it's like, just imagine the telephone network or internet network everywhere, which is spread out. It's all connected to each other. Kacha kacha, all, it's like a full, like a full net of connection. So same way our brain also is connected. So every neuron has a connection point. So it's like a branches, like two neuron when it is coming. So it's like a branch. It is coming and it's not like connected, but it is sort of like this. And when there is, like, if I ask you, what did you eat, today morning for breakfast? Okay. Now, as soon as I asked this question, you remembered the answer, right? Why? Because morning when you were eating, that information got stored and one neuron was created. So there is a pathway. Okay. So as soon as I'm asking you this question, if I put you in MRI scan, your some parts of the brain will light up. That means, there is a signal, there is energy that flows. It's like a light, that lightning that we see, after the rain. Kada, 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 kada. Same way in your brain also. As soon as I ask this question, the pathway which has stored this information is all lighted up. Cut, cut, cut. It's all been lighted up. So how the transform, this message is passed is from these branches. At the edge of the branches, okay, which is called a synapse, there is a chemical which is released. Okay. And that, it's like, uh, during childhood times you used to play catch, no, one person will throw the ball, other person will, and then again, same way. Okay. So one neuron will throw one, chemical, and the other neuron will actually, the pathway here will actually grab it. Okay. And that's how this message is passed from one neuron to other. Now it looks very technical, but this happens in mini microseconds. That means you will not be able to see it also. Even under microscope, you have to really slow down the whole process to actually notice this. Otherwise, we cannot even see it. It's faster than the snap. Okay. So there is a chemical message that is going on. It is, it's going on continuously. Now, when someone, uses substance, what happens is the substance comes and overshadows this connection. Okay. So something like this, it happens. And, it sort of covers the entire process. And now the neurons are not able to send signals. Okay. And that slows down the whole process, the brain development process. And because of that, the brain development also slowed down. Now I am trying to simplify it as, simple as possible. I hope you are getting it. But what
Yes, I
happens is,
do.
because of the long use of substance, there is a delay in the whole, brain development. And because of intense use, okay, chances are there that there can be damage which they cannot recover. Okay, which it's almost like mentally challenged or mentally disabled. Not too very intense, but there will be some capacity which will slow down. So to understand some concept, it may take little time. To do some problem solving, it may take little delay. So there will be delay in lot of different things. So there can be, a permanent change in the brain because of substance use very early on in their life.
So, sir, what about, are there any methods or any means to help them in some way to be, for their brain to somehow, to be in a better condition, to be quite healthy, to something like that, like the
There,
means or the
there
method?
are, there are, there is a, recently there was a, actually neuroscience is a whole new branch of science, lot of different things. Now, recently there is something which came out, which is called as neuroplasticity. Okay. Neuroplasticity means our brain is constantly developing. Okay. Like I mentioned, the final, physical development of brain happens 21 to 23, right? So this was the early research work. But now they say that it's not like that. You are constantly developing. That means even in your old age, your brain development is still going on. Okay. There is a constant, like, for example, right now, when I am saying all these things and you are receiving all these things and understanding, there is a physical change happening in your brain. Okay, technically there is a physical growth happening. So every information, naturally, when when you are sleeping, it is also refined. So something it will store, something it will erase. So constantly that also is happening. But this changes is something which is constant. So when what happens in physical development, people those who are blind or people those who are visually disabled, what happens to the other senses? What do you think? What happened to the other senses like hearing, touch, and all that? It becomes more sharp, right? Better than us who can see. So when one sense goes down, the other senses also take over. Same way, in it can happen in the neuro development also. When one things go down, there are also other pathways to bypass. Okay, there are other pathway also to bypass it, which the brain develops. So that's what now the new research telling, that a person who lacks certain, brain related development can also become good at some other way, which is, which can bypass the whole process. Only thing we need to identify what is that, and then amplify it.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. I saw some other question. Okay, can depression be hereditary? Research says yes, depression can be. Okay, why? Because depression, a child who is born and brought up by a parent who is depressed, there is high chances that they also can have depression. Okay, that also means there can be two meaning of that. One thing is depression is passed on, or because they sort of imitate their parents' perspective, the way the parents are looking at things, they also start, that means, for example, the way you smile, the way you laugh, many times it is borrowed from your parents. Okay, that's why, when you smile, you look like your parent or your brother and sister. Why? Because when you were child, you looked at your father, your mother, and you sort of copying their expressions of emotion. Okay, so that expression of emotion becomes your expression of emotion because of that upbringing. So, you know uh, chances of depressed parent having depressed children is very, very high. If they are able to intervene and work on that, reverse it, then changes will happen. Otherwise, you know uh, chances of this intergenerational depression can happen. Okay, so that's about depression. How can we recognize a person? Oh, okay. Now, again, when we talk about depression, depression is a clinical situation. I'm pretty sure you will have a subject called psychopathology. Okay, where sir will be talking about different type of clinical illnesses, how to identify it. So there are some criterias. They need to fit that criteria, and you cannot give a diagnosis. Okay, so don't worry about this. Even if you are not supposed to, or you are not authorized. Okay, like for example, let's say someone is showing symptoms of cancer, and the symptom of you cannot go and tell them, oh, looks like you have cancer. You cannot say that. They have to go to a doctor and get a clinical diagnosis. Same way, if you can identify, but you cannot diagnose. You have to send it to a clinical psychologist, to a psychiatrist who can actually diagnose them. Okay, so there is a specific subject I think you will be learning, which is called a psychopathology, where it will be explained to you what are the different mental illness and what are the criteria to diagnose them. Okay, any other questions?
Yes, sir. Uh,
Yeah.
So there is like a final step. So in the diagnosis of depression or mental illnesses, whatever they are, so there is a final step where it's finally diagnosed that the person is depressed, right?
Hmm.
Okay, because I was just referring to some notes on clinical psychology, and whatever I gathered, I just sort of thought that okay, there is you should never diagnose. So hence the question.
Yeah, yeah, very true. There are criterias which I think it will be taught to you, but officially we cannot give a diagnosis. So when it comes to psychopathology, it you will be explained what are the different illnesses and what are the criteria and how you can diagnose, what are the assessments and things like that. So it is just like for you to have an assessment. Okay, let's say a client is coming telling that I have a clinical depression. Then, even though they have diagnosis, as a psychologist, you again do assessment to see what condition they are, what is the level. So you can actually do your own assessment also. So all that is taught, but clinically we cannot give official diagnosis to the client. Okay, I think all that will be taught in psychopathology course as you will be teaching, as you will be learning. Okay, I will go ahead with the topic. Yeah, and then so there is developmental neuroscience. Again, it's a whole different frame altogether. Then come evolution and natural selection. Okay, now we are all familiar with evolution theory and the um, Charles Darwin theory and all that. There is, I can understand there are different contradictions, you know, when we look at the theory. But then, from the evolution perspective, if you ask me, do I agree with the evolution perspective or evolution theory? I strongly agree. Even if you look at yourself, we are all evolving. Now evolution doesn't mean now evolution theory, one of the extreme perspective that Charles Darwin actually brought into the picture, which many of the scientists also actually they don't agree with it, is the ancestral evolution. That means we were monkeys and we evolved into human beings. All that was little stretch of evolution theory. But then if you look from animal species and also human species, even if you look at yourself, we all evolve. Evolve means adapt according to the situation. Human beings are constantly adapting. When, for example, you joined this course, there was a lot of adaptation. Even the whole Zoom process, Zoom class, online class, how to ask question, how to interact, all that, there is an evolution going on, there is a evolvement going on. So even from human being perspective, we can actually look from that, from that lens to see how people are evolving. Okay, one of the example is again pandemic. Okay, the way we evolve from that pandemic, that the whole COVID experiences. Now, naturally, if you are sitting in a closed group and suddenly if one person is sneezing, knowingly or unknowingly, we will look at that person to see if it is safe or not to sit here, or is there a way, to avoid the interaction. We are very accustomed to, wash our hands, either with sanitizer or with soap, with any human encounters or any, when we are touching different public places and all that. So there are some behaviors that we have adapted, to adapt to the environment that we are living. And from that perspective also we can actually understand human behavior. Okay, and that's where natural selection also comes into the picture. How human being is wired in such a way to have a social connection. Okay, if you look at human beings, recently I was reading about this. Human beings are wired for social connection. Okay, they are not designed to live alone. Okay, they are not designed to live in isolation. We are designed to live a social life. So there needs to be that social contact and relationship, and that interaction helps us to grow. Okay. So that is also part of natural selection. The friends that you select, the social contacts that you have, the partner that you are attracted to, people that you are attracted to, the family that you establish, all that is part of evolution. Constantly there is there is adaptation happening in human life, and that shows how, as human species, we are interacting to our environment. Okay. So that is also another line of stream that we can actually see, which is biological perspective to understand human development. So there are three things: genetic studies, developmental neuroscience, and evolution, and natural selection. There is whole lot when it comes to that. I'm just trying to summarize so that you can understand. Okay. So that's the developmental view of human development. Any questions till now? Is it clear?
No questions, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Now let's look at the second aspect, which is psychodynamic approach. Okay. Now, before I get into that, psychodynamic word is a special word which comes from a theory called as psychoanalysis. Okay. Now, psychoanalysis was Sigmund Freud's theory. Okay. So if you understand Sigmund Freud's theory, you will understand psychoanalysis and you will understand psychodynamic perspective. So when it comes to theories, you will get a better idea. But I will simplify so that you can get a simple understanding of what psychodynamic means. Okay. Psychodynamic means, for example, if you look at me, if you have to understand me, you have to understand my early childhood experiences. Okay. Because my early childhood experiences gives foundation of who I am today. Okay. My interaction with my parents, my interaction with people, and that 1 to 5 years of life puts the foundation of who I will be in my present and in my future. Okay. So basically, when we talk about psychodynamic approach, we are trying to understand the past. Okay. We are trying to understand the past experience to understand the present and the future. Okay. So that's the simple way of understanding psychodynamic approach. Okay. So from that perspective, let me take you forward. Okay. Psychodynamic approaches emphasizes the role of unconscious mind. Now, this is a very special term which Sigmund Freud actually brought into the picture. He gave an example of, a iceberg. Okay. You understand what is iceberg? I, I hope you all understand what is
Yes,
iceberg.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Remember
Yes, sir.
the Titanic story? How
Yes, sir.
Titanic
Yes.
was hit by iceberg and the whole ship came down. Okay, keep that in mind when I'm talking. So iceberg, if you notice, uh, what you see above water, okay, you may see above water maybe something which is very small, maybe like a small ice which is floating on the water. But iceberg maximum capacity actually is inside water. Okay. So what you see on top, which is also called as a tip of iceberg, is only maybe 20, 10 or 20%. That means 90% of of that iceberg is inside the water. Okay. So the same analogy Sigmund Freud is taking, and is telling that our mind has three levels. Okay. One level is called as conscious mind. Conscious mind means from the time you wake up and the time you go to sleep, all that happens, which is in your awareness, you know that it is happening to you. That means your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, your relationship, everything, all the information, when it is happening in your awareness during your waking hours, is called as conscious mind. Okay. So, like, for example, you heard this click, that means you are aware of it. So, all this information is being collected. That means you are aware, that means it is in the conscious mind. Okay, so that's one level, which is also called as above the water, or the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so our conscious mind is there, and then there is second level. Second level is called as subconscious mind. Okay, or pre-conscious mind. Now, subconscious mind means it is not there in our current awareness, but if you put little bit of effort, you can actually bring out of it. Okay, for example, if I ask you, what did you eat yesterday night? Now, you were not thinking about it. Because I asked you this question, you can actually think, and then you can generate an answer. Oh, I was eating this. Okay, so that is what is called a subconscious mind, something which is not there in our awareness, but if you take little bit of effort, you can bring out the information. Okay, so there are a lot of things which is not right now you're thinking, but you can, through that effort, you can actually bring it back. So it's also called as memory storehouse. Okay, where all the information are stored, and whenever you need it, you can actually take things out from that storehouse. Okay, so that is the second level, which is called as subconscious or pre-conscious. Okay, then there is a third level. Third level is called as unconscious mind. Now, this is keyword when it comes to Sigmund Freud's theory. Okay, Sigmund Freud was the one who emphasized on unconscious mind. Unconscious mind means there are a lot of things that our mind, there is a section where lot of things, which is like permanent database, permanent storehouse, which is kept inside, which we don't have access, but it is surely influencing us in the way we are doing things. Okay, so what Sigmund Freud is telling, that this unconscious mind that we don't have awareness about, access about, this is the main nucleus inside of our mind, which is sort of like giving us signals how to behave, how to think, how to emote. Okay, but we don't have any access to that. Okay, it is completely detached from the awareness. Okay, so that is what is called as unconscious mind. So what Sigmund Freud says is that, how much we, now through the process of therapy, Sigmund Freud says that we can have awareness to the core, to the in depth. And according to Sigmund Freud, the whole theory or the whole therapy that Sigmund Freud does is basically to bring that unconscious mind to the conscious mind. That means to get access to that unconscious mind and to bring it out. And what he says that, many times in our dreams, we can actually see things which is connected to the unconscious mind. So there will be lot of, for example, okay, let me ask you this question. Let's say if today you're going to dream, going to sleep, sorry, and then you see a dream of a black cobra. Okay, what you will interpret it as? What will be the interpretation when you get, oh, I saw a black cobra? You will be happy, or you will be sad, or you will be angry? And what is the interpretation that you will give? Anyone?
So maybe we can interpret that that is a bad dream.
Okay,
Maybe
bad
something
dream.
bad will happen to us.
Something bad will happen to us. Okay, let's say if you go to sleep and then you saw a bat, okay, in your dream, what you will think, how will you interpret, what is the interpretation that will happen? Anyone?
Maybe you can think that we saw the devil or something like that.
Okay, we saw the devil. So what is happening now? These are animals. Okay, maybe a snake catcher, if they see snake in their dream, They will be thinking, oh, it's good. Today, maybe I can catch some new snakes or I can see new varieties of snake. If you are a biologist, if you see a bat, you will actually appreciate, oh, bat, it looks so beautiful. It's, if you look up closely a bat, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's a fox lying upside down. Okay. So, but these creatures, they interpret something, they are symbolic. And how we reach to that conclusion that they are evil or they are wrong? Because someone has represented that in such a way. Okay, like for example, if you see a dove, flying, okay, in your dream, naturally you will interpret as something which is holy, or we can say it's a sign of Holy Spirit. Okay, why? Because it has been represented, doves has something which is holy. So all these are signs and symbols. So what Sigmund Freud also says that many of these unconscious things are also signs and symbols that we have incorporated it in our unconscious mind, and many times we react according to it. We see something and then we interpreting it. Why? Because unconscious mind is in control. Okay, so that's the unconscious mind. And what Sigmund Freud says is that our early childhood, that means from our birth till the 5 years of age, we go through five different stages, which he called it as psychosexual stages. Okay. Now, through these five stages, we are developing our personality. That means the way our personality will be is because of the five experiences of first 5 years of our life. Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you remember the first 5 years of your life? Chances are there we may not even remember. Okay, we might have heard something from our parents or people how we were during first 5 years, but chances are there that we don't even remember the first 5 years of our life. Okay, and it's such a natural thing. 5 years we have lived, but we have no information, no access to that information. Now Sigmund Freud says that first 5 years of life is setting the stage, it's setting the foundation for the rest of life. That means your adulthood will be decided because of that first 5 years of life. Okay, so he is dividing. Now he was the first one to divide human life into different stages. Okay, and he gave this five stages approach. Okay, so there are some things which is happening in first 5 years of life, and there are also other things which is happening in other areas of life, but he didn't elaborate that, but his main focus was first 5 years of life. That stages was elaborated by another person called as Erik Erikson. Okay, so Erik Erikson took the five stages of what Freud has presented, and he elaborates it again, and then he brings different stages from birth all the way till the old age. Okay, so he divides human life into different stages, and he says that we are what we are because of the development that we have received from each of these stages. Okay, so he creates something called as psychosocial stages. Okay, I will explain both these stages in a very gist so that you can understand. So here Sigmund Freud is focusing on the psychological and the sexual development of individual, and Erikson elaborates it and he brings the psychological and the social development of individuals. Okay, so though the root is same, Erikson actually is elaborating. Okay, now what Sigmund Freud is actually telling when he is talking about five stages of psychosexual stages. I don't have much time to elaborate on it. In a very simple way, I want to actually focus on that. So first stage, what he says, from birth till 18 months, it is called as oral stage. Okay, so what he says that during this time, the the infants experiences pleasure. Pleasure means we should not, we should not look at pleasure in a different way. Pleasure also means satisfaction. Okay, that means sometimes when you eat your the most favorite food, okay, you feel a sense of satisfaction that words cannot express. Okay, and that is what is pleasure. That is what is the whole excitement of, or the heights of pleasure that we can have. So that is the word that here Sigmund Freud is using. So Sigmund Freud says that during that time, for a child, the whole pleasure or satisfaction comes from the oral mouth area. Okay, so mouth, lips, oral activities is what the child is looking satisfaction at. So for example, if you give them a mobile, what they will do, they will try to touch their mouth. Okay, so there is a natural tendency to feel from the mouth, suck whatever is there, okay, put in their mouth. So that is what is oral satisfaction, oral pleasure. So that is the oral stage that he is talking about, from birth till 18 months. And then slowly the child grows from oral to something what is called as anal. So from 18 years to 3 years, what Sigmund Freud says, that the child develops sense of satisfaction and it focuses on the genital area. Okay, so the focus is on the fecal functions, or for example, like we say, toilet training. Okay, discarding fecal. Okay, the control of bowel is what they develop during that time. So that stage is called, according to Sigmund Freud, was called as anal stage, where the child develops some sort of satisfaction when it is able to control or to discard the fecal matter. Okay, now this is also a time where the child experiences the first hand experience of discipline. When the parent says, no, you cannot do it. Okay, till that time, the child defecates wherever it wants, but this time the parent says, no, you cannot do here, you only have to do here on the toilet. And that is what toilet training happens. So that toilet training experiences also brings lot of changes in their behavior. Why? Because they are experiencing the first hand experience of discipline in their life. So that's the 18 months to 3 years, which is called as anal stage. And then comes phallic stage, which is from 3 years to 6 years. Now here the child slowly changes and starts seeking a sort of pleasure or satisfaction by touching genitals. You will see a lot of children during this time, they will be playing with their genitals. They will try to identify their genitals. They will be able to identify the difference between male genital and female genital, and there is a lot of curiosity, okay, that will be there. And also there will be, you will see some children also will be playing with it, okay, which is also almost like masturbation, not to achieve the satisfaction but just simply playing with it. So what Sigmund Freud says is that is called as phallic stage, where the whole concentration is on genitals. Okay, and from there they get the satisfaction. Then comes 6 to 12 years, which is called as latency stage. Okay, now all this play with the genitals sort of goes into the unconscious mind, and then what happens is slowly the child starts looking outside, like friend circle. And this is the time where they will start going to school, they will start making friends, they will hang out with their own age group friends. Okay, they will not like to be friends with the opposite sex, so there will be like they will try to hang out with their own gender friends. Okay, all this is part of latency, where there is lot of cognitive development and lot of social development and interpersonal skills development. Okay, so that is the latency stage. Then comes 12 to 12 years and above, adolescence. Now this is where again they will go back to the focus like it was in phallic stage. What Sigmund Freud says, again these things comes back. Now here in adolescent, they will, the whole sexual impulses will re-emerge, and now they will be looking at opposite gender with interest, trying to understand the opposite gender. They will be interested in there will be lot of experimentation, lot of exposure. They will try to hang out, and lot of relationship experience. All that is part of the adult development, also trying to become an adult, trying to be an adult. Okay, so that's where, from 12 year onwards upwards, he says that it is called as genital stage, where the satisfaction comes from the opposite sex, or interest towards the opposite sex, and that's where gratification also comes into the picture. So these are the 5 stages that Sigmund Freud is trying to explain. Now the same way, uh, Erikson also takes the same thing, and he brings the social thing into the picture, and he develops it into something called as psychosocial stages. Okay, so again he takes the same stages, and he discovers that every stage they go through some basic conflict, and because of that basic conflict there is one event that they have to learn or overcome. And if they are able to manage that event, they will learn some values and virtues that will help them when they are adult. Okay, so that's how Erikson slowly develops on different stages of life, which is called as psychosocial stages. Infancy, from birth till 18 months. So there is a basic conflict of trust versus mistrust. Okay, now one of the important events at that time is feeding. Okay, so basically feedings become, that means the connection with the child, the parent becomes very important. If the parent is able to provide the needs of the child will develop trust. If the child is not getting the needs, or if their needs are not fulfilled, they will develop mistrust. Okay, so the child who is developing mistrust in their life in the early infancy, even when they are adult, they will still have mistrust in the relationship that they have. Okay, so what Erikson says is that if they are able to resolve the conflict, they will move from one stage to the other. If they are not able to resolve the conflict, they will get stuck. Okay, now the same thing, Sigmund Freud also is telling. He's telling that, just a minute. He's telling that, if a person is able to adapt and is able to resolve the conflict here, they will move from oral stage to anal stage. But if they are not able to adapt, what Sigmund Freud says that they will get stuck in that stage. Even if they become adult, they will get stuck in the stage. Okay, which he uses a word called as fixation. So they get fixated or stuck in a stage where they are not able to develop. So same thing Erikson also is telling, that if they are able to build trust in this stage, then when they are adult also they will be able to build trust with others. If they are building mistrust with their early caregivers or parents, when they become adult there will be mistrust in other relationship also. Same way, it goes into early childhood, which is 2 to 3, autonomy versus shame and guilt. That means, autonomy means they want to try something, they want to do things on their own. They will show. This is where, parents will feel temper tantrums. Lot of children will become irritated, scream, and all that. Why? Because they are having a first hand experience of discipline. Till that, before that, the parent was telling, okay, do whatever you want, you can do whatever you want. But now the parent is telling, no, don't do it. The parent, okay, you can do it here. So the first hand discipline that they are having, and there is a sort of, you know, independence that they are trying to actually do. So that uh, autonomy is something also they are learning, which, you know, that risk taking. Okay, one of the example is children trying to learn how to walk. Okay, so they will get up, they will fall down, again they will get up. So there is a risk taking, certain risk taking is happening continuously, and that is that autonomous, you know, behavior that they are exhibiting, that I want to learn to walk on my own. Okay, I want to be independent, so they take risk in that. Now if the child, you know, so child either will learn autonomy, or if they are not adapting to that, there will be some sort of shame and doubt, self doubt, that okay, I don't know if I can do it or not, you know, sort of hesitation to take risk. All that also can be something which shows that, you know, the person got stuck, or the toilet training didn't happen properly. Okay, so that is the second stage, which is called as early childhood. Then comes preschool, you know, school age, adolescent, young adult, and middle. You know, there is a lot to talk about. I will do one thing. I will show one video which will help us to understand what I'm talking about. Okay, can you see? If you can see, just give a thumbs up, or is it visible? Okay.
Erikson's theory of psychosocial development identifies 8 stages which a healthy individual should pass through from birth to death. At each stage, we encounter different needs, ask new questions, and meet people who influence our behavior and learning. Stage 1. Basic trust versus mistrust. As infants, we ask ourselves if we can trust the world, and we wonder if it's safe. We learn that if we can trust someone now, we can also trust others in the future. If we experience fear, we develop doubt and mistrust. The key to our development is our mother. Stage 2. Autonomy versus shame and doubt. In our early childhood, we experience ourselves and discover our body. We ask, is it okay to be me? If we are allowed to discover ourselves, then we develop self-confidence. If we are not, we can develop shame and self-doubt. Both parents now play a major role. Stage 3. Initiative versus guilt. In preschool, we take initiative, try out new things, and learn basic principles like how round things roll. We ask, is it okay for me to do what I do? If we are encouraged, we can follow our interests. If we are held back or told that what we do is silly, we can develop guilt. We are now learning from the entire family. Stage 4. Industry versus inferiority. Now we discover our own interests and realize that we are different from others. We want to show that we can do things right. We ask if we can make it in this world. If we receive recognition from our teachers or peers, we become industrious, which is another word for hard-working. If we get too much negative feedback, we start to feel inferior and lose motivation. Our neighbors and schools now influence us the most. Stage 5. Identity versus role confusion. During adolescence, we learn that we have different social roles. We are friends, students, children, and citizens. Many experience an identity crisis. If our parents now allow us to go out and explore, we can find identity. If they push us to conform to their views, we can face role confusion and feel lost. Key to our learning are our peers and role models. Stage 6. Intimacy versus isolation. As young adults, we slowly understand who we are, and we start to let go of the relationships we had built earlier in order to fit in. We ask ourselves if we can love. If we can make a long-term commitment, we are confident and happy. If we cannot form intimate relationships, we might end up feeling isolated and lonely. Our friends and partners are now central to our development. Stage 7. Generativity versus stagnation. When we reach our 40s, we become comfortable, use our leisure time creatively, and maybe begin contributing to society. Our concern is generativity. If we think that we are able to lead the next generation into this world, we are happy. If we did not resolve some conflicts earlier, we can become pessimistic and experience stagnation. People at home and at work are now who influences the most. Stage 8. Ego integrity versus despair. As we grow older, we tend to slow down and begin to look back over our lives. We ask, how have I done? If we think we did well, we develop feelings of contentment and integrity. If not, we can experience despair and become grumpy and bitter. Time to compare us with mankind. Erik Erikson was a German-American psychologist who, together with his wife Joan, became known for his work on psychosocial development. He was influenced by Sigmund and Anna Freud and became famous for coining the phrase identity crisis. Although Erikson lacked even a bachelor's degree, he served as a professor at Harvard and Yale.
Okay, so this is about, the psychodynamic perspective. We looked at psychosexual stages and psychosocial stages, Erikson stages. Okay, I will stop here now. We will come back and we will take the rest of, the stages later next week. Any questions or any comments before we wind up the class? Okay, if not, we will wind up for today and then we will meet next week. Okay, take care. Good night. See you next week. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.